I'm going to be cutting up a ribeye today. So when you're cutting steaks, you want to have at least an 8-inch knife. You can use just a chef's knife, but I have here is a breaking knife. This is an 8-inch by Victory. You might also see something more like this, which is a butcher's knife. It's a bullnose butcher knife. This is also by Victory. It's a 10-inch knife. And these have a nice thickness and a little bit more heft than a breaking knife. So it might be a little bit easier for you to cut steaks with this. I am used to the 8-inch breaking knife. That's what I use the most. So that's what I'm going with today. Once you've got your steak open, you'll notice that you've got an angle. Just this is the way that beef is broken, and it's not going to be perfectly square. So what you want to do is you want to start by squaring up your cut, and you want to take as little off as possible, but you want to make sure you are starting with square. So you see you got a pretty good piece there that's going to be good for stir fry or kebab meat, something like that. So I'm just going to set that aside for now. When you're cutting a steak, I like to start on the side opposite my dominant hand. So for me, I start on the left. And I use my offhand to stabilize the cut. And I use my right hand, and I'm going to start at the top, the side furthest away from me. I'm going to go my desired thickness, which for me is about 1 inch. And I'm going to make that first cut pushing straight down toward the table. And you want to make sure you're all the way down to your table. And then you're going to draw back in one cut. And then finish by cutting all the way down so your tail end comes loose. And you're still going to be connected up top. You're just going to come back and finish off that cut. And we do that because you don't want to be sawing back and forth. When you saw back and forth, you're going to have a lot of jagged edges. You don't want that. So that you have a nice evenly cut ribeye steak. And to finish off a ribeye, you can leave this on if you want, but generally you're going to take a cut on an angle and remove just that fat, and you've got a presentable steak just like that. So once again, you start with your desired thickness, straight down to the block, and then draw back. And you want, like I said, try and do this in as few cuts as possible. But you'll see that that cut gets you all the way through the meat. So anytime you see me taking a second cut, I'm basically just getting through that fat cap. And again, cutting that tail end. So you have a nice even cut ribeye. On the ribeye primal, you're going to have this rib meat, and that's where the bones are taken out. You can see there's these ridges, the bones come out between there, so those are where your rib bones would come out. And that rib meat, you can leave it on. I'm going to trim it off of mine, and that can go in my trim pile. Again, that can be used for stir fry meat, anything like that. If you notice any heavy fat cap. You can always trim that up to how you like it. When I get down to the end, I like to keep that second to last steak. Even though it's cut free, I like to lean it up against the last one. And then I'm going to square off the back end. And that just helps me keep things stable without having my fingers under the blade. And that way I get two nice evenly cut steaks. Again, removing some of that rib meat. So you can see the big difference between one side down to the other. So this is going to be more towards your loin end, and this is going to be towards your chuck end. So this end looks very similar to a chuck eye steak, and down here you're going to get closer to a New York strip. So out of that one ribeye loin, you can see I've got 13 steaks out of that, which is about 1 inch thick steaks. And it looks pretty good. So like I said, I'm going to take these ends and I'll just clean any gristle and fat off of that so they have a nice lean cut. And as I said, you can cut that into kebab meat. I'm going to do stir fry because I just use that more often. And like I said, nothing here is going to be wasted. Any of this can be ground up, can be used for making rendering down for tallow, or you can save it to add to any other lean meat you have. Just pile it up and make burger. And that's it.